All right, I might not be making any forward-looking statements today. I don't plan to, but in case our discussion goes into such kind of direction, do make sure that your buying decisions or anything are based out of what is presently there in the market. With that, first wanted to ask folks here, how many have got security background, or how many have used Splunk before? A raise hand or any such feature would be fine enough. I hope raise hand option is there.
I don't see it. I think those options are not there for us.
Oh, okay. So, okay. In case there, like folks, so I expect two kinds of people in the audience today. Those who might have used Splunk but don't know about security. Folks who are very well versed with security but haven't used Splunk Enterprise before. And obviously, the other folks would know most about it because they are already in the security domain and they have been using Splunk Enterprise Security today. So in case you run into any questions, do start posting them in Slack or else chat over here in WebEx. We will try to answer them as we go along. In case we are not answering or you're not gathering any thing about the topic which is being discussed over here, we will try to see if we can pause in between to answer those as well. First, we'll try to take it through chat in WebEx or else on Slack. All right, so let me start with today's session. It's about enterprise security and how it helps in your security operations center or else SOC. Typically what happens is your SOC will have a lot of systems sending you data, and those data would be alert notification as to something going wrong. These will then be intercepted by your security tier 1 analysts who will try to see which is meaningful and which may not need to be addressed. Tier 1 then passes on these information, these alerts, to tier 2 for handling response for the issues that have been noticed. So this seems pretty straightforward. The problem is what happens today is there are so many systems in place that your tier 1 itself gets bombarded with these notifications, which they are not sure whether they are actionable or not, right? So this is the challenge where SIM comes in place. Security information and event management is SIM. So you may say that I have a SIM solution already in place, and we are talking about enterprise security, which is also a SIM solution. How is it different from others, right? So that is what we will see today. What happens with something like enterprise security is that you're performing proactive monitoring. Your monitoring center is not operation center or monitoring center. It becomes a nerve center or command center, because we know that power of Splunk is that we can actually gather data from any kind of endpoint that is out there, and through that data we can actually perform any kind of complex correlation and machine learning on top of it. These kind of capabilities make enterprise security unique, and that's when your regular monitoring center converts into something called a nerve center or a command center. Most of the actions in these kind of places is not even human. It's human or machine learning. It's a combination of both. And obviously, with the data being ingested in such a vast volume and at such a vast velocity, you would need machine speed cycle to actually figure out whether it's an actual issue or not and actually act on them. So with these typical explanation, what happens is this particular slide actually tells you that SIM is that first part that we are going to talk about today, and Splunk Enterprise solves that SIM solution. Second part is where SOAR comes into place, and SOAR stands for security orchestration and automated response. So this is towards the response piece. We have got other products which actually solve SOAR piece as well. Today's session, we would not be talking about those. We can give you a brief if you have questions. But we can also do further session in future session. We can definitely talk about some of the SOAR solutions like UBA and Phantom. So this is your nerve center example. This is the place where all the data sources are around your operation center, where your nerve center, where SIM and SOAR sit in the middle, and they allow you to do investigation, monitoring, analysis, and act on the data. And this is the product portfolio that I was talking about. Enterprise security is going to be our discussion today. And we can talk about user behavior analytics, which is also called user and entity behavior analytics, and Phantom later, I mean, not today. So I will actually pause at this point of time because I would want to switch to demo of enterprise security. So if there are any questions, go ahead and put them now. Right? No questions so far? Make sense? Right. I'm actually trying to do this demo from our demo environment, Oxygen. This is enterprise security. Typically what happens is your SOC analysts would actually start at either security posture page or incident review page. Both of them are fine, depends on what use case is there, and any drill down from security posture will actually take you to incident review. So we have talked about numerous events happening across your infrastructure, right? You've instead of having one event, you are having 10,000 events, and you don't know which one needs to be looked at first. Typically, your SOC analyst can only solve up to 8 problems per day. So this becomes a lot. So how do we prioritize and show them what they need to act upon? So this security posture actually helps you with that. If you notice on the top, there is a overall security posture. You can notice that some things like total infection, which is decreasing minimally, but if you look at your aggregated risk, it's actually increasing minimally. Now, these things, wherever you see increasing or decreasing minimally, is being calculated using machine learning. All right. So, and you can actually edit this to add any of the other metric that you want to measure. And these metrics would be based on domains like DNS, email, identity, licensing, malware, or such similar such kind of things. We'll talk about domain more in a bit. And I'm not going to add any more metrics here, but just wanted to let you know. So that is one point where you can actually see that, whether there is something wrong that is happening overall towards in my system, and that too through machine learning. Second part is that you've got notable events in Splunk Enterprise Security. Now, these notable events are basically the alerts generated by various correlation searches that have been in place. And they will also come with whatever integration you've got with other apps or technologies. So if you notice here on top itself, I mean, I may have, 4,000 events happening in my system right now, but I know that out of those, only 75 are critical and roughly around 231 are high priority. Second thing on top is actually you can look at these things from various domains perspective, and this is the one that I was showing you earlier, that you can look at these things from access domain perspective, audit perspective, endpoint perspective, network perspective, or threat perspective. even if we scroll through these things, right, we could notice that, at 2 p.m. something has been happening. Around this time, I see a spike in across most of these things compared to other places. Now, what happens is, this is our demo setup. I mean, some of the things will keep on repeating after some time, but that's just for demo purpose only. But we will be talking about one scenario that we are trying to solve through today's demo. If you want to know more, I mean, for each of the domain, you can see that from the top menu, security domain, each of them have got their own separate menu. And each menu has got several dashboards, which give you further details about these domains. All right. So we've got a network, which talks about traffic, intrusion, vulnerability, web and network and port changes. We've got identity, which looks at asset as well as identity. Whenever you look at any of these dashboards, which has got center in front of it, I mean, I'll just try to open one, but we'll come back to these things towards later in the demo as well. So whenever you open any of these centers, you would notice that it gives you further details on top as a snapshot view. For example, I opened asset center, or else if I want to look at identity, I can look at identity center. We'll try to look at these a bit later as well when we are trying to explore, because we will try to look at our asset and asset and identity of certain folks afterwards. So I'm trying to open access center here. And you can notice that on top, it has got again a similar posture kind of view on top, which actually tells you how many authentication attempts are there. These are very important for you to figure out, for things like whether failures are happening, authentication failures are happening across my system or systems or not. So let's come back to the demo. So we are actually starting at security posture just by looking at, first two, we know that, we don't have to really focus on 3000 events. And if I look below, the next panel actually tells me top notable events. And it gives you count as well as a trend line of it. And some of the things that are contributing to the issues right now are things like anomalous new listening port. This is something that you would need to know that, certain port which was reserved for doing certain specific tasks did not show up until now, but why is it showing up more recently? Things like default account activity. UEBA actually, like I said before, is coming from user behavior and analytics, or user and entity behavior analytics, and it is also detected some of these threats. So on and so forth. Here is a list of all of them. With this trend line, what happens is if you just scroll through, right, you can actually see that certain time may stand out that there are multiple threats, or else things like, something happened at this timeline, and after that, something else started happening. Now, security events are very different from what we see in APM, application performance monitoring, or else infrastructure monitoring. Why they're different is because APM does, APM you're interested in, I deployed something, whether it's, response time has gone up or not. So you would be interested in something really fast, that analytics becomes a really millisecond level or really fast. Infrastructure monitoring, on the other hand, is again different because at that point of time, you are again getting events, but your resolution would be something like, if this is happening in my current hour for last 15 minutes, how has this happened last week at the same hour? And you would want to do those kind of comparison. But in security, things are quite different. In security, what happens is a possible breach would have happened today, but that malware or piece of malicious code would sit in your network to be activated for several days or even months. So that's why it's important for us to have a wider range whenever we try to monitor security events. It's not just monitoring something what has happened right now or last 1 hour or something like that. All right. So with that, one of the final things which is available over here is top notable event occurrence by host. And we can see on top, right, there is one source, or basically one host, which actually has a lot of errors, a lot of notable events being noticed, around 24. out of which 5 of our correlation searches which are in place, they have detected that there are some issues. These are the ones which have created those events. And basically, it is kind of touching all your security domains. These domains that we talked about, it is actually covering 4 of those domains. So this is something that seems like one of those candidates which I should be looking at right now. The moment I click on it, it actually goes to your second view, and this is incident review. All right. So let it load up. So this is what I was trying to tell you earlier. Sometimes when you know what is the notable event that you need to act upon, you can directly start from here. But if you want, if you are looking at your overall enterprise and you don't know what to look at, we have kind of given you so many data points so that you can decide what you should look at first. So the moment I come to incident review, you would notice that it has already come with that host filter, and it's actually showing me 75 events, out of which 28 are critical and 11 are high. We started off with somewhere around 4.5K, and we have come down to only 75, out of which, I can actually get rid of medium, low, and high. So it actually reduces further. All right. So I can actually submit this and look at only the 39 events that could be my first, that I need to go through in my first glance. All right. So when we try to do this, we can notice a lot of these notable events which are happening, and let's just glance through those. Things like algorithmically generated domain name detected, right? DGA error, which has been identified by UBA app, right? This could be a potential problem. This is where someone has tried to create their own domain name and try to send you something malicious, right? This is one example. The host seems like it has got multiple infections. And if you can notice some of these notable events as well. Now, these are called sequence events. I mean, on top, you can see that I can actually filter only for sequence event as well. Now, sequence events are a bit different, all right? So let's try to expand this sequence event. What happens is you would notice that a sequence event, let me actually open one of the regular correlation search event as well. So this is one of regular one of the regular events. It is not sequence event. It's come from correlation search. You would notice that there are certain number of fields that have been identified, and you see something next to this host number, right? There is a risk score, all right? And towards the right, you can actually see that there are certain actions that can be taken on this particular host as your next action item to investigate further, right? You would also notice that if I change action, this is based on the context of what you are trying to open up. So it changes based on, whether you are looking at host, or whether you are looking at user, or whether you are looking at some other kind of information. All right. So this is how a typical correlation search event, notable event looks like. But if we open one of these sequence events, you can notice that there are actually a list of let me try to zoom in a bit less. So you would notice that there is a sequence of these notable events which are actually being called out separately. For example, these towards the left, oh shucks, okay, sorry, my bad, my scroll is killing me, 1 second. Yeah, so it has got a start phase, and then there are certain list of events like a rare process detected, DDNS activity detected, dynamic DNS host, web traffic to dynamic DNS host detected, and again DGA attack, right? So those kind of things, and then it ends. If you look at these individual notable events, they might not make much of a sense, right? So what would happen is, let's assume a lot of my correlation searches spit out a lot of notable events. If your tier one analyst is looking at those, they may not understand this individually. If someone is not getting a context of there was an email attachment with a lot of spaces, they would not understand what are some of the next things that are happening. For example, after that, I see that there was a rare process that ran. And after that, there was a DDNS activity detected, and then following which there was a web traffic to DDNS host, and then DGA as well. So, and finally, UBA lateral movement, right? I'll come to this lateral movement a bit later, but these kind of things got stitched together with something called a sequence event. We have already reduced from, several thousand to only, I think, top 39. Within that top 39, we have grouped the story together, and you can literally read it. All these things are so readable that even if you don't understand any of the terms, even if you read these things, for example, this sequence event identifies the phishing attack targeted at Bill Williams. It came with all the complete context. The impacted person was Bill Williams, and this seems to be a phishing attack. So this is basically we have led you towards your first point to start your investigation with. All right. So far, clear? Make sense so far? All right. All right, good. Thank you. So let's say I want to drill down to one of these hosts, and I want to first look at what's wrong going on with this host. You would notice that there are a lot of options that are available, right? What we can try to do is we can actually see Asset Investigator. Let it open up. And I know that we've got some folks who have used ITSI, IT Service Intelligence, for infrastructure monitoring. This would make sense for them. Basically, it's similar to what deep dive in ITSI looks like. But in order for me to explain you better, what it's actually trying to do is, against various metrics like authentication stuff, malware related stuff, UBA anomalies, and IDS attack, and changes in your system, and UBA threats, things like these, it has plotted a timeline of the view. The colors for each of these timeline actually tells you how many events have been happening for that particular piece that you are trying to monitor. In this particular case, what you can notice is at certain interval, right around 6 p.m., you can see that, I don't know if this is quite visible, but let me try to zoom in a bit. You can notice that the shades of all these lanes are actually a bit bolder at these certain point of time. So what happens is it actually gives you a timeline kind of a view, and you can actually notice that authentication failure happened here, and you can notice that there were actually 2 events detected for malware attack after this point of time. So what you can actually do is you can actually start clicking on these events, because this is something that may need to be looked at. All right. The moment we click on it, it will start populating the context with the details about what is happening, why this happened. You can, if you want, you can open this in a new search to know further, look at the actual event. You can also share with your team, or else you can actually create a notable event. So this has already come from a notable event, and we don't want to create a notable event for one individual piece. But I want you to notice that if I just do a command click, right, I can actually select multiple. And context keeps on getting increased, like all the context gets stitched together. And this is the point where you can actually see that, I feel that these events together makes more sense. You can also do, I think, one second, let me try from here. You can also do something like drag and select, so that you select everything that you see is fishy. You can do something like this as well, and basically take all those 3 actions that are available over here. This also gives you a very clear view as to what is happening when you compare against various attacks, or basically the various notables that you've configured. You can obviously edit and change, add further from your instance, whichever are available. All right. So I'm actually not going to create one of these alerts, but this can be added to your existing investigation. So let's try to do next thing. Let's try to look at what else is there in these notable events. I've actually seen one of the regular correlation notable events. I've looked at one of these sequence events. And because we are actually trying to investigate something like malware kind of attack, which has actually taken control of system, we see some things like ransomware note detected. All right. If I expand this has come from a category of ransomware. All right. And the moment I open this, you would notice that it actually gives you a detail of which correlation search this notable event came from. What are the historical data for each of these notable events? Even it gives you adaptive responses if you have configured for such kind of situation, if it arises and if there is need for some adaptive responses, they can be seen over here. It also tells you about some of the next steps, and these are very good guidance for your team, right? For example, it actually tells you that we need to gather more context around what is happening, and it may come from your authentication details, from endpoint, your notable history, and then maybe look at the update logs, right? And check the vulnerability of the endpoint and things like that. All of these things are actually available in these dashboards that we talked about earlier, right? So all of these things for further drill down are available. So let's try to pick one. I could have opened directly from there, but yeah. So we'll go to the asset center. We give the asset IP address and try to search for it. So it gives you a detail about who this asset belongs to. It actually belongs to Bill Williams, and his last known location is USA. All right. So let's take this use case itself and try to understand, what has happened with ransomware, right? What is this correlation search and what is this ransomware? So how Splunk is different with most SIEMs solution is because we are actually looking at a lot of data, and we are actually saving this original data in its raw format. We are not manipulating the data. We are adding the context, or basically streamlining it for your SOC based on something called a data model. All right. So a data model is basically a structure. It is a SIM compliant structure, and it's our own SIM, which you can actually check out on Splunk base as well. There is an app for this. Basically, you map your data to various data models, and then it will become technology agnostic. For example, we had been telling here, right? We had been telling that we are looking at all the network. Now, network data coming from Cisco router or Palo Alto, those kind of things may differ, right? So how we are actually accommodating all of them together is through the SIM compliance. We are actually streamlining all the fields that you should be bothered about, and that is what you are actually reporting against, or you are getting the events from the same. All right. So let's go to the configuration. We can actually check out the content, and within content there are two things: content management and case library. We can open either one, but let's try to browse through use case library. In the end, both are kind of related. So you can notice that once we have created our data models, we are giving you security related events, those information through various use cases like abuse, adversary tactics. One of the things that is available here is malware. All right. If I click on this, it actually shows me what are the various options available for me within basically stories available within malware, right? And one of them is actually ransomware. Now, we can also use these drop downs to come down to a specific thing that we want to look at. And it is based on various security frameworks like CIS-20, kill chain phases, attack framework, emitter framework, and NIST, right? You can do this, or else you can actually base it out of various data models that I was just talking about. So you can look at only endpoint data model related things, or else vulnerabilities, or in our case, I mean, we are actually looking at ransomware. All right, so we can actually filter through that, or actually we could have just some, if I spell that correctly, right? So I can actually filter it with whatever we want to. So we'll just look at this one of these to understand, how it's working in the backend, right? How it is working. So if I open ransomware, you would notice that most of the description here is very verbose and very descriptive. You can just read to understand what this is all about. For example, the description, where is the reference for this kind of information. And towards the right, it will show you around your CIS-20 framework, which phase does it map to. For your kill chain phases, which one does it map to? Similar for other frameworks as well. Towards the bottom, what you would notice is just for this one particular use case inside malware, right? Just for ransomware, these many correlation searches are present. Each of these correlation searches, if you open, for example, the first one is actually saying common ransomware extension rule. Second one is common ransomware notes rule. So this is what we saw just now, right? So we'll just try to click on this and we'll try to open it. So just for the second one, you can see that there is actually an explanation around it. What is this about? It also gives you a search query. This is the search query that you can actually take and use in your system directly as well. This is the one that will trigger notable events. It also tells you how to implement. And one of the most important thing for SOC, right? One of the most important thing for SOC is actually knowing false positive. This notable event, actually ransomware, right? There could be files like JPEG file, which has got a lot of space, and someone actually accidentally fat fingered it and just tried some three letters, right? ABC. So that kind of file looks like malicious, but it could be a genuine fat finger error or thing like that. How do you ignore such false positive? And that is what is also told here. You can see that, we can actually leverage that. If there are a large number of files which actually gets created like this, then it indicates that, it is not a one-off situation. It is not a fat finger error. This is actually a malware, right? So this kind of information will be given to you. So I feel that this is quite important, and this particular approach itself is quite different. We are actually simplifying things for the SOC analyst, where they can read and understand what each of these mean. So you can actually use these things for detection. Investigation has got its own set of queries. And finally, support. What you would also notice is that Splunk Enterprise Security is very tightly coupled with machine learning toolkit. It has got a lot of machine learning capabilities. If you just notice at this particular thing, right, a baseline of command line length, and it's followed by MLTK, which is the short form abbreviation for machine learning toolkit. So these things are actually coming from machine learning toolkit. If I try to open the search, what you would notice is, I hope it's zoomed enough. No. Yeah, it only zooms this much. So what you will notice here is machine learning algorithm density function is being applied on this particular model that is getting created. So it actually creates a model that you can apply later on. The algorithm is density function. So these kind of things are very tightly coupled with these use cases as well. So I just wanted to give a brief of the use case library, because these use case libraries have spit out so many notable events, and we are actually trying to use one of those to take our action. And we kind of know at this point of time that it is a malware attack just by looking at one of those sequence event itself, right? We knew that it is some kind of infection that has happened to one of these systems. if you notice one of these examples, right, this file decrypt my files.vbs, and it's being invoked from various different places. And you can actually use these things also to basically you can add these to your investigation that, you know, someone needs to look at this further. So what you would notice towards the bottom there is an option for you to create your own new investigation. Just by clicking on this button, I can actually create my own new investigation. In this particular demo instance, I'm not going to create a new investigation, but I'll just try to open an existing one just to show you what it typically looks like. All right. Let me just click, it's opening. 1 second. So this is your typical investigation. Things that we were also interested and we are kind of looking at, right, is the host which got infected. We looked at the user who was impacted because of this. It can be broken down as identities, basically the people, or asset, basically the machines, right, endpoints. So you can actually pick on any of these and you can explore further. So it will give you an overall context in terms of notable events and vulnerabilities found on that system. You can actually see whether, you know, the system was properly updated or not, those kind of details. But it has got a lot of information. You can actually look at the endpoint data. And you can see basically something else also stands out. Things like, this server.exe being run from your desktop seems like, something not as expected. Maybe something named like that, which is actually running from a different place. So you can actually look at these kind of details also. Obviously, things like user account change when someone is trying to hack in and perform, lateral movement across various systems, and port activity. You can also look at things like network data and traffic analysis. I'm not going to go through all of these. Let's try to click on one of these to open up. Okay, so it has done a monthly breakdown, so it's got a lot of, like, basically everything rolled down to one date. It's not that meaningful here. We can obviously open the search query and tweak as per our needs. You can actually look at network traffic data, and you can compare the size of byte being sent across various processes and ports. All right, so at this point of time, let's go back. I'm not going to make any changes to investigation. Actually, sorry, just give me a second. I'll just take the asset number again, and let's search for this asset. Look at, so we'll just try to reduce it again to those high-end critical only. And we will look at other notables that we had got. So we actually see things like lateral movement also here. Rare process. I mean, all these things got stitched together in that one of those correlated search. I mean, at this point of time, we are kind of sure that, this is a malware attack. Let's go to some of the other dashboards. Now, SA Investigator dashboard is coming from one of the service add-on. We can actually try to open any of these things. You can actually look at asset or identity, either one if you want to explore further. And it's very similar to how we have done it before. We will just add, not all time, 1 second. So just add it to search and it will try to populate the details. These are all the notable events. So now this is kind of a deep dive into all of those kind of things that we have looked at, but from a different perspective, which has all been brought together. For example, from asset perspective, you can look at almost everything that we actually have already done. Things like authentication, whether there was authentication failure by various people or not, who are the folks who have attempted authentication and actually failed. So those kind of things you can actually look at in this window. Let's do one thing. Let's look at some of these failures, and these failures are coming from users unknown, mail, gopher, things, people like these, right? User 3, user 5. So let's try to go to a different dashboard and see whether we can actually investigate one of these logins. Let's say I want to look at, one second. Sandeep, that was identity itself, right? The
For which one? Sorry.
Haversign is under identity.
That's security intelligence, and go to user intelligence.
User. Okay. Access only, right?
Anomalies. Yeah. Yeah,
Yes,
that's
yes.
correct.
All
Access
right.
anomalies.
Sure. Thank you. So this particular dashboard, for example, access anomalies, what we are trying to see is people who have actually changed their location across globe. And what they've done is basically traveled a lot of distance within a very short span of time. So this speed is basically only possible when they are literally Superman or thing like that, right? So this particular algorithm is called Haversign, and this is what we are trying to find over here, whether there are any such users in play or not. So something like user 1. I'm just trying to narrow down to only one user. We can actually take any one such example, or maybe it's user USR only. Let's see.
No, I
Just
think
to
it's
show.
user underscore something. So just search for user.
Okay. Yeah,
Don't worry.
this is fine. Yeah. We saw user 3 in the previous one. Okay. Yeah. So it's not a USER, it's USR3. So this is the username. If you pin down to one particular user, you can see that, that one person actually is moving across various cities in USA and is doing it very fast. The speed you can see on this side, right? And you can actually see that their location is actually not just America, it is actually going to Africa as well. So this kind of things is something that would actually allow you to add this particular user also in your investigation. And that's when you can add that user manually or else from the interface itself. This particular investigation, actually, we just saw the first one, right? Workbench view. There is something called a timeline view as well. Now, why this stands out is the moment you have started an investigation, you can actually tag various things that you are trying to do. I mean, so far we have actually looked at n number of dashboards, right? And from these dashboards, we found out some of the details, like there were multiple infection on that particular system. It may have spread to other systems as well. There were things like excessive failed logins, which would have been due to some malicious access, and those access got confirmed by something like lateral movement or Haversign algorithm that we just now saw. So once this is done, this place you can actually add your own notes. You can collaborate with other people in your team so that each one gets a task assigned and they can actually look at these things further. In the summary view, you can actually look at all the things that have been added, all the artifacts and who is working on those and what progress they have made and such kind of information. So that's about investigation. And let's come back to one of those essay investigator add-on. And I'll just take one more example here. What you can notice is that these dashboards, you've got some glass tables stitched. You can also create glass tables, like you can create or access glass tables directly from the menu. Again, to the folks who have used ITSI before, this would be meaningful, as well as to the folks who have actually tried out the new beta dashboard framework, because these dashboards are pretty cool in depicting your overall story. So I'll just go ahead and click on one of these. It's just a demo sample dashboard, but if you have used them before, you know that these are very easy to create and very powerful in conveying information. All right, so this is a network diagram template, and you can see that a lot of data has been brought in here for overall context. And if I click on edit, okay, I did not click on it yet. Okay, if I click on edit, you can notice that these dashboards are not like your regular dashboard. I mean, if you have not used ITSI before, obviously this may be new for you. What is there is towards the left, all the correlation searches that are available in your system are available for you to add to your dashboard. You can also add your own ad hoc queries. I don't have permissions to create ad hoc in this particular environment, but you can actually add your own ad hoc queries or data models as well. So that would be an easy drag and drop kind of thing. You can just take it and drag and drop, and that query will actually show as an output result. Or else, even if you have to create multiple of these kind of inputs, you can actually just do a Control-C, Control-V, and it actually copies it over. The one that I actually dragged, it got dragged over, so that has also come. And you can actually easily drag and drop them wherever you want. You can also resize this if you want to. All right, so these kind of things are possible with glass tables, and you can actually add a background image, which could be your visual diagram of your overall SOC, which are the systems it is interacting with, and then overlay data to show better story. So that was my final demo that I wanted to show. I'm not going to save this, but I can now open up for any questions that you may have. There are a lot of dashboards to cover, so unfortunately I can't go through all the dashboards, but if you do want to know anything specific, do ask them.
Yeah, I think, Nikkei, there was one question where they basically wanted to know how do we go about the process of onboarding data. So in enterprise security, how do we get started? So do you have access to the security essentials part of it, or do you want me to take that?
Right, let me present 1 second. 1 second.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. All right. So even if you want to try out enterprise security, and you just want to see what are the capabilities of enterprise security that are available, one of the apps that you should start with is called Splunk Splunk Security Essentials. It is available for free on Splunk Base. If you have not used Splunk Base, it is basically an app store for Splunk apps, and you can actually check out Security Essentials app over there. Okay. Hope I'm opening the right one. Let's see. So the Security Essential app will actually give you a lot of built-in content around your data journey. It will actually show you your maturity level. Based on that, you can actually test your data sources as well. Let's see. It's not opening. 1 second. Essentials. 1 second.
Yeah, I've shared the link with the within the
Okay.
chat as well, so no problem.
Okay, sure. So I'll just move on. So I've just opened one of these dashboards. If you notice security content towards the top, these are various stages that we see in your data journey. And one of the most first step would be to collect data from your various data sources. And this is where Splunk is also good at, right? We can actually collect data from literally whatever kind of data source is possible over there, right? Second step is the one that we talked about in terms of data model, where you need to normalize your data. We are not modifying raw data. We are storing raw data as it is in its original native form. And we are allowing you retention based on your security needs as well, right? But what we do is something called schema on the fly, which you might be aware from if you've got Splunk background itself, that schema on the fly will actually normalize these data as per your need. It will show you the fields that you are interested in. And you can obviously access the raw data as well. Then there are certain other stages like where you would actually expand this. You would enrich with some of the content that you may already have. Things like, you've got content update, for example. We also publish content update. Sandeep, did we post a link of content updates?
Not yet. I'll do that right now.
Okay. So I missed talking about content updates. So basically these correlation searches that I was talking about earlier, right? For example, ransomware had, those 15, 20 correlation searches only for investigate phase. Those most of these things actually come with enterprise security content update. And you can notice these in the notable events where the prefix is called ESCU, which stands for Enterprise Security Content Update. This is one of the things where Splunk's security research team periodically creates these correlation searches. They look at whatever is the latest threat, and based on those they keep on creating newer correlation searches that you can adopt and apply in your instance. Let's try to see. Yeah, something like this ESCU here. So this is coming from content update. So content update, these kind of things will provide you enrichment as well. Things like list of all the domains that are found to be malicious, right? You keep on updating those lists, and that is what you will enrich your SOC with. Then comes automation and orchestration. This is where some of the things like UEBA and Phantom will also come into play. A lot of these can be automated using enterprise security as well. And final one is advanced detection, where you will apply all these things using machine learning. So these are various phases. What happens is, again, if you go below, you will actually see based on these your journey, wherever you stand. Obviously, you are talking about data collection. That is stage one. And you can actually see within stage one, what are the use cases you want to work on, right? So you can actually pick on something like that upfront, and you can actually see what is available for you. For example, AD account change is something you want to monitor. This will actually give you details around which are the data sources in your system that are available, and whether you want to whether you have already onboarded them or whether you want to onboard them if it is missing. Some things like I would say, just to add on to this, right? Something I would say that things like HR data, right? It may not be your mandatory data that you need to have, but it is good to have for things like something malicious started happening from your internal employee, right? So those kind of things you can actually choose and test upfront using this free app called Security Essentials, so that you are ready for migration for something like enterprise security. There are a lot of dashboards in this app as well. You can actually play around with those dashboards, and you can actually see some of these dashboards that we had shown you, right? So they are already available here as well. These will give you basic starting dashboards, but these may not solve your complete SOC needs. So you can actually check some of those dashboards as well. Did that answer? Yeah.
And one other thing, if you can just show them, if you can just share your screen again.
Okay. Oh, 1 second. Yeah, 1 second. Secondary share. Yeah. Yeah.
Click on data, click on data source onboarding guides.
Yep.
Okay, what Splunk has done is pretty nice. All of these were available in the docs pages already, but what they made was a lot of customers had the same requirement, right? So, like how do I onboard all data sources and stuff like that? So if you click on data source onboarding guides for each one of those domains, it'll tell you what kind of technologies are supported and how to go about it. So, take authentication itself, open authentication, or I mean, doesn't matter, pick any one of them. Yeah, so here it says that it supports Windows auth security logs as well as Linux auth logs. So click on Windows security logs, and that will take you to a detailed documentation as to how you can onboard, all the Windows security logs onto the platform and map it such that you'll get all of those use cases. And cool things over here is that, like suppose you've done a particular activity, you can mark it as complete. So what they have achieved with Security Essentials is, you can actually track this as your project progresses. So, when you mark it as complete, you can go back and run a report to find out what all use cases have been onboarded. So if you go back to home first, Niket. So over here, if you just click on find content. So Niket mentioned that, you can start off by all of those different use cases. So click on security basics, security detection basics, and click on any one of them, security monitoring perhaps. Now, so Splunk has kind of structured all of those use cases. So, obviously there are lots of use cases now, 60 odd use cases from the core platform itself. Then there is enterprise security content updates that releases new content every fortnight. And then there is also the security essentials, which provide some basic capabilities. So if you look over there, for each one of them, there is a check mark as well as a ribbon. The checkbox over there indicates that you've completed the task, whereas a ribbon indicates whether you want to bookmark that. So, like for example, you've implemented, let's say, brute force behavior, AD account changes. You put a check mark against this. Let's say you want to investigate a little further on basic malware outbreak. You can probably put a bookmark on that. And then once those bookmarks have been set, you can go to the top and you can export, where Splunk will automatically export all the details of all of these use cases and then create a ready document that you can publish to your customer, indicating that, hey, 20 use cases have been implemented. These are the other ones that we need your review, kind of a thing. So essentially, this Security Essentials can be a very, very powerful tool that you can use for not just enterprise security onboarding, but having that conversation with your customer to onboard additional use cases.
Thanks, Sandeep. This is the link for the documentation around security essentials. Yeah. Any other questions?
So there's a question on chat. Sanjeev's question was, what is the licensing model for ES? So Sanjeev, it's all based on the amount of data ingested itself.
You can check on Splunk site as well.
So essentially, if you have like 100 GB of Splunk core and you want to onboard enterprise security, you'll probably require a separate 100 GB license for enterprise security. The enterprise security license may not be the full price as the core platform. It may be like a small fraction of it, but essentially that's the add-on premium app that you need to buy. So that app is also licensed by the total amount of data ingest.
So was there anything in Slack as well? Slack, any questions there?
So again, I'm sorry, I've been on Slack, but I didn't see any posts over there. But then it could be my ignorance in using the platform well. Kamlesh, were there any chats, messages there on Slack? I didn't see anything.
No, just check that in a question I'm just asking.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, 1 second. Share secondary. So I will actually move on to the next thing that we wanted to discuss. You remember, folks, we had been putting up challenges after each of the session. Oh, wrong. Wait, 1 second. Sorry. I will share the slide after the session. There are some additional content in the slide that would be a good reference for you. So we are done with our demo. So one of the things was we had done certain challenges, and last month we did give out a challenge winner for Kamlesh's session. There were 3 out of 5 questions that were answered on Slack, and we had given out a gift, Amazon gift voucher. Unfortunately, the last session, which was there on Ansible, did not have any answers submitted. So we can do either one of the two things. We can keep it open for this one more month, or else we can create a new one for enterprise security. So any DevOps folks, if you guys are interested in answering those, I would request you to join us on Slack. You can notice that this question was already there. I think it's one of bookmark questions. So you can actually open the questionnaire and you can try to answer those. Otherwise, I'll give out the answers. And we'll post 5 new questions from this session, and hopefully we will have we will have your participation, and we want you guys to actually join it. It's all for fun, and obviously there is some perk to it. Again, for being a presenter in this user group, I would encourage you guys to pick up on any of the things that you want to talk about, and it could be very basic. For example, I said, right, you can actually talk about what is the most difficult challenge that you've solved and things like that. And that also makes you eligible for one of the gift cards. Oh, I'm going the other way around. 1 second. So I had created some of these rules. All of these are actually for fun. So I would encourage competition, but I would most likely want to actually have more participation. So that's why some of the rules that are there have been set. For all the community resources, there would have been n number of resources I would have given out, but thankfully, because of one of our my very close friend and co-presenter at .conf, Clara Merriman, there is one blog that should be your repository or your go-to place for any official or unofficial documentation about Splunk. So most of you guys also have posted that, where do I learn this thing from scratch? So this should be your first point to start learning from scratch. One of the things I had changed this month was change the timing from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. based on some of the feedback that we got. If the timing doesn't work for you, do let me know. We can adjust this. Do submit your feedback. We are very heavily dependent on our feedback, and unfortunately, we are not getting those many feedbacks. So please, I encourage you guys to at least fill out first check-in when you attend this. Don't forward, do RSVP to attend these, and then definitely submit your feedback after the session. Join us on a Slack. The link is over there towards the bottom. And hope everyone here has registered for .conf, Splunk.conf, which is on 20th and 21st of October. It is virtual and it's free. For APAC region, it will also be on demand, so you can actually watch it at your own leisure. Only thing you may miss is actually live Q&A, which will happen during the live, first time demo only. So hope to see you guys there because I'm also one of the presenter, and thanks everyone for joining today. Thank you.